Hey everyone, today we are here doing a lifting threads case. So this patient has actually had lifting threads quite a few times. It is her all-time favorite. She is absolutely obsessed with threads. She loves them. She loves the results. So I typically do something like this at least once a year on her just to kind of maintain that lift and also maintain the collagen production that she gets from it. So you can see my 3-vector is a little different than what we typically teach because her major concern is that marionette line. So I'm really focusing on 2 threads to the marionette so that I can lift it as much as possible. So you can see I kind of mapped her out. I drew those lines on the face when she was sitting up because I want gravity to do its job. I want to see where the deficiency is, where the heaviness of the tissue is, and kind of mark accordingly. Once I had her marked up, I laid her back. She was previously cleaned with HipaCleanse. We love to use HipaCleanse, which is just chlorhexidine, to make sure they are good and clean. And then I just use alcohol pads throughout the procedure to make sure that she's staying clean. You can see that I first went in and just kind of numbed my insertion site. So that will just get the patient numb so that when I go in with my 18 gauge needle, the patient obviously doesn't feel that poke. And then once that pilot hole is created, I then went in with a cannula. So we love to use the ComfortTox 22 gauge 75 millimeter length cannulas to deliver anesthesia down each vector. So what that does is obviously numb the patient so that they are very comfortable throughout the procedure, but it also kind of helps in creating a tunnel for your thread to follow. So you can see this thread when I first went to place it in, I didn't love the depth of it. It was a little too superficial for my liking. So what I did was I held on to the end of the thread that was sticking out of the hub and pulled back. Now, normally, if you don't secure the thread, if you pull back, the thread will engage in the tissue, and then if you advance forward, you're working over it, you can kind of create a knot or a dimple in the skin. So what I did, you can kind of see right at the end of the hub of the pink hub, the thread is sticking out a little bit. What I did was I held that thread tightly against the hub so that it does not engage in the tissue. And I was able to pull back a little bit and redirect myself. This is a little tip and trick that we like to teach. And I only do it if I absolutely do not like the placement of the thread. If the thread is too superficial when you're placing it, if you tell that it just looks too superficial, the thread's going to be too superficial for the next 3 to 6 months, however long it's going to take for that thread to dissolve. So I always like to correct it while I'm doing it so then I don't have to deal with it later on. So she's getting 3 threads placed there. And then I'm also doing 1 along her jawline. So this will also help in kind of pulling back that marionette line, but it also just will give a little bit more definition straight back along the jawline, just kind of giving her a little bit more structure and support. So you can see this patient's doing really well. She's had this procedure, as I said, a number of times, so she's pretty used to it. Went in and numbed, opened up the pilot hole, gave anesthesia throughout, and now just going straight in with the thread. Once I'm happy with the placement, pulling back and engaging the thread in the direction I want it to go. So you can see a little bit over her cheek, there's like a little bit of like accordionness to the tissue, if that's even a word. But the tissue is just like a little bunchy there. I almost like to see that on patients because clearly I'm not surgically cutting off any of the skin. It has to go somewhere. So when I see that bunching, I know that she got a lift because that extra tissue is kind of bunched up there. And then it'll just kind of fall into place over the next couple of days. So once I make sure that it all looks good, I clean her up. I'm cutting as close to the skin as possible so that the skin actually heals over. Putting Band-Aids over the injection site, which we like them to try to keep those Band-Aids on for as close to 24 hours as possible. And then once they're covered, you'll see I'm just kind of going in and smoothing out any little areas where the thread may not be engaged fully into the tissue. And then once I do that, she is good to go. That was just one side. I did the same exact thing on the other side, and she loved the results. And as always, she is a fabulous patient. She sat through it like a champ. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed.